The scream came before anyone saw the blood. A silver ceremonial chalice shattered across the marble floor. Moonlight pouring through the palace dome suddenly dimmed, and every sacred flame surrounding the Moon Ascension altar flickered as though an invisible force had stolen the air itself. Then an elder whispered in terror, "The moon crown has awakened." If the hidden heir was not found before the Moon Ascension ceremony ended, the oldest royal bloodline in werewolf history would either reclaim the throne or disappear forever. Before destiny reveals why an overlooked servant became the center of an ancient prophecy, make sure you subscribe if you enjoy emotional werewolf romance stories filled with hidden royalty, alpha kings, and unforgettable fated mates. Now let us return to the moment everything changed. Only moments earlier, the grand hall of Silvermoon Palace shimmered beneath towering crystal chandeliers. Hundreds of nobles stood proudly in embroidered cloaks, while musicians filled the chamber with elegant melodies. Tonight marked the annual Moon Ascension Ceremony, the most sacred celebration in the kingdom. Every noble smiled. Every court official admired the spectacle. No one noticed the servant quietly polishing silver beside the western staircase. Mira Ashwyn had learned long ago that being invisible often hurt less than being remembered. She carried trays, refilled goblets, cleaned away the mess left behind by people who never bothered learning her name. When noblewomen passed her, they barely looked in her direction. When guards crossed the hall, they stepped around her as though she were another piece of furniture. She accepted every insult with quiet dignity. Not because she believed she deserved them, because surviving had taught her that silence was sometimes stronger than pride. At the opposite end of the hall stood Alpha King Lucian Blackthorne. Tall, commanding, clad in black royal armor traced with silver moonsteel. For years, the kingdom had waited for the moon to reveal his destined mate. Yet every ceremony had ended the same way, without an answer. The High Elder raised the ancient moon crown toward the crystal dome overhead. May the moon reveal what has remained hidden. Soft silver light spread across the palace. The entire hall fell silent. Nothing happened. A disappointed murmur swept through the crowd. Then, a frightened servant stumbled into Mira. The heavy tray slipped from her hands. Goblets crashed across the marble floor. As she instinctively reached to steady herself, the worn fabric of her gray dress tore slightly at the shoulder. A small silver birthmark shaped like a crescent moon caught the light. Lucian saw it. His breath stopped. A violent surge of electricity raced through his entire body. Deep within him, his wolf awakened with a powerful, instinctive purr, unlike anything he had ever experienced. Mine. The word echoed through every corner of his soul. Across the hall, Mira froze. An unfamiliar warmth spread through her chest. Her heartbeat quickened. She looked toward the throne. Their eyes met. The world around them disappeared. For one impossible moment, king and servant simply stared at one another. The moon crown suddenly blazed with brilliant silver light. The High Elder gasped. "No," his trembling voice echoed through the chamber. "That mark, it belongs to the House of Ashwyn." Shock rippled across the assembled nobles. The forgotten royal dynasty. The bloodline believed extinct for nearly 3 centuries. Whispers erupted like wildfire. It cannot be. A servant? Impossible. Duchess Valeria Nightfall's expression hardened. Across the hall, Commander Cassian Voss slowly reached for the hilt of his sword. Not out of loyalty, out of fear. Because if the girl everyone had ignored truly carried the ancient royal bloodline, then someone would eventually ask what had happened to the rest of her family. And he knew the answer. Lucian took one deliberate step toward Mira. His glowing amber eyes never left hers. He did not see a servant. He did not see a scandal. He saw the woman the moon had chosen. And somewhere deep within the palace walls, long before the nobles whispered her name, they had forgotten her face. Every morning before sunrise, while the palace still slept beneath silver mist, Mira Ashwyn quietly carried buckets of water across the endless stone corridors of Silvermoon Palace. She scrubbed marble floors until her hands cracked from icy water. She polished armor that would never belong to her. She prepared banquet halls where she would never be invited to sit. By the time the first noble descended the grand staircase, every trace of her work had already disappeared. That was precisely how the palace preferred it. Invisible service, silent obedience, forgotten lives. If a servant performed every task perfectly, no one noticed. If a servant made one mistake, everyone remembered. Mira never complained. Not because life had been kind, because she could not remember a time when it had been. The oldest memory she possessed was not of her parents. It was of snow. She remembered standing alone outside the palace gates at barely 6 years old. A frightened little girl wrapped in an oversized wool blanket. A palace steward had found her carrying nothing except a small silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon. No family, no documents, no explanation. Only a single sentence she repeated through endless tears. My mother said someone would come back for me. No one ever did. The pendant disappeared shortly after she arrived at the palace. She never learned who had taken it. The servants' quarters rested beneath the western wing, where sunlight rarely reached. Tiny stone rooms, simple wooden beds, cold walls that trapped the dampness of every winter. Many servants dreamed of escaping. Mira never allowed herself such dreams. Dreams hurt more than reality. Instead, she found comfort in small routines, feeding abandoned birds outside the kitchens, sharing extra bread with elderly servants too weak to finish long shifts, reading weathered books discarded by palace scholars. Kindness cost nothing. Yet somehow, it always made the darkness easier to endure. Not everyone overlooked her. Some noticed her only to remind her where she belonged. Lady Helena Arden, daughter of one of the wealthiest noble families, delighted in humiliating palace servants whenever court guests visited. One afternoon, during preparations for a royal banquet, Helena deliberately dropped a jeweled bracelet onto the polished floor. "You," she pointed toward Mira. "Pick it up." Mira quietly knelt. As she reached for the bracelet, Helena stepped forward. The heel of her expensive boot pressed firmly against Mira's hand. Several noblewomen laughed. "You should smile." Helena's voice carried mock sympathy. "A servant ought to look grateful." Pain shot through Mira's fingers. Still, she said nothing. She gently retrieved the bracelet and placed it back into Helena's hand. "Thank you, my lady." No anger, no bitterness, only quiet dignity. for reasons Helena herself could never explain. That calm response unsettled her more than any argument could have. Later that evening, the elderly palace librarian found Mira carefully returning several damaged books to their shelves. "You always repair them before reading." He smiled softly. "Most people only notice what is broken. You notice what can still be saved." Mira lowered her eyes modestly. "They deserve another chance." The old librarian studied her thoughtfully. Without another word, he handed her a faded manuscript too worn for the royal archives. "I believe this belongs with someone who actually listens." Its cover carried only 3 nearly erased words. "The First Kingdom." That night, by candlelight inside her small room, Mira carefully opened the fragile pages. Most of the text had faded beyond recognition, yet scattered passages remained. They spoke of an ancient dynasty older than every existing Alpha Kingdom. The House of Ashwyn. A royal family chosen not because they were the strongest, but because every ruler pledged to protect the weakest wolves first. Their authority came from unity. Never fear. Near the center of the manuscript appeared a sketch unlike anything Mira had ever seen. A silver crown shaped like intertwining crescent moons. Beneath it, a single sentence survived. "Only the one bearing the moon mark may awaken the moon crown when the kingdom forgets the meaning of compassion." Mira's breathing slowed. Almost unconsciously, her fingertips brushed the birthmark hidden beneath her shoulder. The same crescent shape, the same silver curve. A strange warmth pulsed beneath her skin. She quickly closed the book. "It cannot mean anything." She whispered the words more to reassure herself than because she believed them. She had spent her entire life washing dishes, cleaning corridors, serving nobles who barely remembered her existence. Stories about forgotten queens belonged to legends, not servants. Above her, Silvermoon Palace celebrated another prosperous season. Music drifted through towering halls. Crystal chandeliers sparkled beneath moonlight. No one noticed the quiet servant reading forgotten history beneath the palace. No one realized destiny had already begun moving. Deep below the oldest foundations, hidden behind doors sealed for centuries, ancient mechanisms slowly awakened. Massive stone gears turned with deep, echoing rumbles. Blue-white light flickered through long-forgotten passageways. Dust fell from carved statues of wolves wearing royal crowns. At the center of the hidden chamber rested the legendary moon crown upon a crystal altar. Its silver gemstones, dark for 300 years, glowed faintly, as though recognizing the return of the bloodline they had been waiting for. Far above, Mira gently extinguished her candle and lay down to sleep. She closed her eyes, believing tomorrow would be another ordinary day of invisible labor. She had no idea that beneath the palace itself, an ancient kingdom had already recognized its rightful heir. The palace had not slept, neither had its king. Long after the Moon Ascension Ceremony ended, Alpha King Lucian Blackthorne remained alone inside the ancient throne room, staring at the empty pedestal where the moon crown had rested only hours before. The elders insisted the servant's birthmark had awakened the forgotten relic. The nobles insisted it had to be a mistake. Lucian trusted neither fear nor speculation. He trusted only one thing, the impossible certainty still burning inside his soul. His wolf had recognized her, not as a servant, not as a royal heir, as his fated mate. For the first time in his life, the powerful Alpha felt restless. Every instinct urged him toward the Western servants' quarters, toward Mira. He tried to ignore it. He reviewed council reports, signed royal decrees, met with military advisors. Nothing silenced the invisible pull. Instead, it grew stronger, like a heartbeat calling through stone walls. Finally, shortly before dawn, Lucian stood. "I am done pretending this feeling does not exist." Without announcing his destination, he left the royal chambers alone. The palace corridors remained almost empty. Servants quietly prepared breakfast while guards changed shifts beneath the fading moonlight. No one expected the king himself to enter the lowest levels of the palace, especially not the forgotten servant wing. Lucian paused outside a narrow courtyard where herbs grew inside simple wooden planters. There, he found her. Mira knelt beside several wilted flowers, carefully trimming frost-damaged leaves before the morning cold could kill them. She worked with extraordinary patience. Gentle hands, gentle heart. Even flowers seemed safe beside her. Before Lucian spoke a single word, the wind shifted. A delicate fragrance drifted toward him. Fresh rain, wild jasmine, moonlit pine forests. The scent struck him harder than any battlefield wound. Electric warmth exploded through every nerve. His breathing caught. His wolf surged forward with overwhelming joy. A deep, primal purr vibrated inside his chest. Mine. The ancient mate bond awakened completely. Not slowly, not cautiously, instantly. Across the garden, Mira froze. She pressed one trembling hand against her heart. An invisible current rushed through her body. Her pulse quickened. Every instinct told her to run toward him, and every painful memory urged her to stay where she stood. She slowly looked up. Their eyes met. Once again, the world disappeared. Lucian took one careful step forward. "I frightened you yesterday." His voice remained calm. "I am sorry." Mira lowered her eyes respectfully. "You have nothing to apologize for, Your Majesty." The formal title felt painfully distant. Lucian shook his head. "I do." Silence settled gently between them. Not uncomfortable, simply honest. Finally, Mira spoke. "Why are you here?" He answered without hesitation. "Because every instinct I possess brought me here." She looked at him, confused. "I do not understand." "Neither did I." A faint smile touched his face. "Until I caught your scent." Color rose softly into Mira's cheeks. The strange warmth inside her chest intensified. Neither of them noticed the old palace gardener quietly watching from a nearby archway. The elderly wolf smiled knowingly before disappearing without interrupting. Some moments belonged only to destiny. Later that morning, Lucian summoned the royal archivist. "I want every surviving record concerning the House of Ashwyn." The elderly scholar bowed immediately. "Many records disappeared decades ago, Your Majesty." "Disappeared?" Lucian's expression hardened. "They were removed." "By whom?" The archivist hesitated. "I never learned. But someone wanted the royal bloodline forgotten." Hours later, Dusty volumes covered an enormous oak table inside the restricted archives. Lucian searched page after page. Family trees, royal decrees, ancient treaties. Most ended abruptly. Entire generations had vanished from history. Then, one weathered journal caught his attention. It belonged to the former captain of the Royal Guard. Inside, one final entry remained legible. Tonight, the last Ashwyn family leaves the palace under royal protection. If they fail to reach Frost Hollow before sunrise, the bloodline will disappear forever. No additional pages followed. They had been torn away. Lucian slowly closed the journal. Someone had not merely erased history. Someone had hunted it. Elsewhere inside the palace, Duchess Valeria Nightfall entered a private chamber where Commander Cassian Voss already waited. "You saw the king's face." She closed the door quietly. "He believes the girl." Cassian remained silent. Valeria stepped closer. "If Lucian discovers what happened 20 years ago, everything ends." Cassian's jaw tightened. "The child was never supposed to survive." Valeria stared at him sharply. "What did you say?" He immediately looked away. "Nothing." But it was already too late. The truth had begun escaping the shadows. That evening, Mira returned to the abandoned library beneath the western tower. The old manuscript still rested where she had hidden it. As she carefully opened its worn pages, something unexpected happened. The silver birthmark beneath her shoulder became warm, then brighter. Soft moonlight flowed across the parchment. Words invisible before slowly appeared between faded lines. "When the moon mark awakens, seek the chamber beneath the first throne." A simple map emerged beneath the writing. Its final destination pointed somewhere directly beneath Silvermoon Palace. Mira stared at it in astonishment. At that exact moment, far below the palace foundations, the sealed stone doors opened another few inches. Ancient wolves carved into the walls seemed almost alive beneath glowing crystal light. Whatever waited inside had not awakened because of politics or power. It had awakened because the last heir had finally come home. The palace bells rang without warning. Not once, not twice. 7 thunderous chimes rolled across Silvermoon Dominion. Every wolf within the capital recognized their meaning. Royal emergency. The kingdom was under immediate threat. Yet no enemy army stood outside the walls. The danger had already entered the palace. Mira hurried through the western corridor, clutching the ancient manuscript against her chest. The glowing map hidden within its pages pointed toward the oldest foundations beneath the throne room. Each passing minute made the silver birthmark beneath her shoulder burn brighter. Something below the palace was calling her. Not with words, with memory. Behind her, hurried footsteps echoed through the corridor. "Mira!" She turned. Lucian strode toward her, surrounded by only 4 trusted royal guardians. His expression remained calm. His eyes did not. "They know." He stopped before her. "Someone searched your room." Her heartbeat quickened. "The manuscript? I moved it before they arrived." He looked directly at the worn book in her hands. They were looking for that. Before either could say another word, a heavy iron gate crashed shut at both ends of the corridor. Steel slammed against stone with deafening force. The hallway became a prison. Slow applause echoed from the shadows. Duchess Valeria Nightfall emerged first. Commander Cassian Voss followed beside her, surrounded by nearly 50 armored royal guards. Only, their swords were pointed toward the king. Not away from him. Lucian's voice became dangerously quiet. "You betray your crown." Valeria smiled. "No, we are protecting it." She slowly stepped forward. For 3 centuries, noble families preserved stability. She looked toward Mira. And now a servant threatens everything. Mira held her gaze. "I never wanted anyone's throne." Valeria laughed softly. "That is precisely why the people would follow you." Cassian raised one gloved hand. The surrounding guards tightened their formation. "I regret this, Your Majesty, but the Ashwyn bloodline ends today." Lucian instinctively stepped between them and Mira. "No. Only one word. Absolute. Final." The corridor itself seemed to grow still. Valeria produced a weathered scroll sealed with black wax. The royal decree of extinction. She broke the seal. The House of Ashwyn was legally dissolved 20 years ago after conspiring against the crown. Lucian's eyes narrowed. "That seal is forged." "So was history," Valeria answered without hesitation. "The people only believe what survives in writing." Mira slowly looked toward Cassian. "You knew my parents." His face hardened. "I escorted them." Her breathing stopped. "They begged me to protect you." For one brief moment, regret crossed his face, then disappeared. "I chose the kingdom." Mira whispered. "No. You chose fear." Lucian felt something inside him snap. Not anger. Resolve. His alpha wolf surged forward with overwhelming force. Golden light erupted from his eyes. The temperature inside the corridor dropped instantly. Every torch extinguished, every window rattled. The marble beneath his boots cracked. His alpha aura exploded outward. The pressure struck the armored guards like an invisible tidal wave. One soldier staggered, then another. Within seconds, entire ranks fell to one knee. Breathing became nearly impossible. Weapons trembled in shaking hands. Lucian took one step. The corridor shook. Another step. The chandeliers overhead swayed violently. His voice rolled through the palace like thunder. "Lay down." The command carried ancient alpha authority. Swords crashed onto the marble floor. One after another. Dozens of soldiers obeyed before realizing they had moved. None could resist. Not because they feared the king, because their wolves recognized the rightful alpha. Cassian roared and charged. His enchanted blade flashed toward Lucian. Steel met steel. The impact echoed through the palace. Cassian attacked again. Fast, precise, relentless. Lucian blocked every strike with effortless control. He refused to kill. He refused to hate. He simply advanced. One movement. Cassian's sword spun from his hand. Another movement. The commander crashed onto the stone floor. Lucian placed his blade gently against the fallen man's chest. It ends. Cassian stared upward. Not at the sword. At the king he had underestimated. Meanwhile, Valeria quietly slipped toward Mira. Hidden beneath her sleeve rested a slender crystal dagger. "If you die," she whispered, "history survives." She lunged. Everything slowed. Mira stood frozen. Lucian was too far away. Then, the birthmark blazed. Brilliant silver light erupted from Mira's shoulder. The ancient manuscript burst open in her hands. Moonlight poured from its pages. The corridor vanished beneath dazzling radiance. Deep beneath the palace, massive stone gears awakened. Ancient mechanisms thundered to life. The hidden chamber opened completely. At its center, the legendary moon crown rose slowly into the air. Its silver gemstones shone like living stars. Every werewolf inside the palace felt the same overwhelming presence. Not power. Recognition. The crown had found its heir. A wave of pure moonlight surged through the corridor. Valeria's crystal dagger disintegrated into glittering dust before reaching Mira. The Duchess collapsed backward in disbelief. "No," she whispered. "This cannot happen." "It already has." The voice belonged not to Lucian, but to the High Elder. He entered, surrounded by every surviving member of the Moon Council. Each elder dropped to one knee. Not before the king, before Mira. The oldest among them raised trembling eyes. "For 3 centuries, we believed the Ashwyn bloodline had vanished." Tears filled his ancient eyes. The moon never abandoned its queen. Silence consumed the corridor. Every guard, every noble, every servant watching from the distant hall. One by one, they lowered their heads before the servant they had ignored for years. Lucian walked quietly toward Mira. He did not reach for the floating crown. He reached for her trembling hand. Their fingers touched. The mate bond flared with breathtaking warmth. Not as a spark, as a promise. And somewhere beneath the palace, the spirits of the First Kingdom had finally witnessed the return of the bloodline they had guarded for centuries. No one moved. The moon crown continued floating above the ancient corridor, bathing the palace in soft silver light. For the first time in 300 years, the forgotten heart of the First Kingdom had awakened. Not because an army conquered it, not because a king demanded it, because the last heir had finally been found. Every noble who had once dismissed Mira as a nameless servant now stood in stunned silence. Some lowered their eyes in shame. Others simply stared, unable to reconcile the quiet young woman before them with the legendary bloodline they had spent their entire lives believing was extinct. Commander Cassian Voss remained on the cold marble floor. His sword rested several feet away. The fight had left a thin stream of blood running from a cut along his temple, staining the polished stone beneath him. He made no attempt to reach his weapon. There was nothing left to fight for. The moon itself had spoken. Lucian looked down at him. "You once swore to protect this kingdom." Cassian gave a bitter laugh. "I convinced myself that destroying one family would save thousands." His voice cracked. "That lie became easier to believe every year." Mira stepped forward. Her expression carried sadness rather than triumph. "My parents trusted you." Cassian closed his eyes. "They did. I promised I would lead them safely beyond the northern pass." His breathing became uneven. "But Duchess Valeria offered me something stronger than honor." Fear. The corridor fell silent. I believed your family would divide the kingdom, so I revealed your escape route. A sharp gasp spread through the gathered nobles. Cassian continued speaking without lifting his head. The royal carriage was attacked before sunrise. Your father stayed behind, so your mother could escape with you. He knew he would not survive. Mira's knees nearly gave way. For 20 years, she had imagined countless endings. None had prepared her for the truth. Tears slipped quietly down her face. Not because hatred filled her heart. Because at last, she knew her parents had never abandoned her. They had given everything to save her. Royal guards escorted Duchess Valeria into the great hall in iron restraints. Gone were her jeweled gowns and confident smile. She faced the High Council, surrounded by every noble family in Silvermoon Dominion. The ancient moon crown rested upon its crystal pedestal beside the throne. Its gentle glow illuminated every corner of the chamber. High Elder Rowan raised the original royal records recovered from the hidden archives. The House of Ashwyn committed no treason. He placed the documents before the assembly. The accusations were fabricated. He lifted another scroll. The disappearance of the royal bloodline was orchestrated through deception, forged decrees, and murder. The chamber echoed with horrified whispers. The elder turned toward Valeria. You attempted to erase history itself. Then toward Cassian. You betrayed those who trusted your protection. His ancient staff struck the marble floor once. The High Council unanimously strips Duchess Valeria Nightfall and Commander Cassian Voss of every title, estate, military honor, and privilege. They shall spend the remainder of their lives imprisoned within the hollow citadel, where neither wealth nor influence shall ever threaten another innocent life. Neither prisoner protested. Power had already abandoned them. Truth had become their sentence. As the trial concluded, nobles slowly left the great hall. Only Lucian and Mira remained beneath the restored moon crystal. Moonlight poured through the vaulted ceiling. The same chamber where Mira had once walked unnoticed, carrying trays of silver goblets, now stood completely silent. Lucian removed his royal cloak, then his ceremonial sword. Finally, he lifted the heavy black crown from his own head. He placed every symbol of his authority upon the marble floor. Without hesitation, the Alpha King knelt. His armor, still marked by dried blood from the battle, scraped softly against the ancient stone. Every guard outside instinctively lowered their eyes. No king had knelt before a servant. No alpha had ever humbled himself before his destined mate in such a way. Lucian bowed his head. When I first saw you, I saw kindness. When I learned who you truly were, I saw courage. His voice trembled. But long before either of those, you were already worthy of respect. He looked up. I regret every moment this palace allowed you to believe otherwise. I cannot return your stolen childhood. I cannot erase every cruel word. But if you allow me, I will spend the rest of my life building a kingdom where no child is judged by birth, status, or fear. Silence filled the hall. Mira stepped closer. She looked not at the kneeling king, but at the man willing to lay aside his pride. She gently reached down, not to lift the crown, to lift him. Their hands met. Warm silver light flowed through the mate bond. I never wanted revenge, she whispered. I only wanted someone to believe I mattered. Lucian's eyes glistened. You always did. The moon crystal above them burst into brilliant silver radiance. Across the kingdom, wolves lifted their faces toward the night sky as ancient bells rang on their own, not announcing war, not mourning loss, but celebrating something far rarer. A kingdom that had finally remembered the difference between power and worth. The bells of Silvermoon Dominion rang before sunrise, not to announce war, not to mourn another fallen soul. This time, they welcomed a new beginning. For the first morning in 3 centuries, every banner bearing the ancient crest of House Ashwyn flew proudly beside the standard of Alpha King Lucian Blackthorne. The kingdom had chosen unity over fear, and history was finally coming home. 7 days after the public trial, nobles, warriors, elders, and ordinary citizens gathered inside the royal moon courtyard. No walls separated rulers from servants. No elevated platforms divided noble blood from common blood. Lucian had ordered every gate opened. Today, he declared, every wolf stands beneath the same moon. Thousands filled the courtyard in respectful silence. Many recognized Mira immediately, not as the quiet servant who once carried trays through the palace, but as the woman who had forgiven a kingdom that never deserved her kindness. At the center of the courtyard rested the legendary moon crown upon a crystal altar. Its silver gemstones shimmered with a living light. High Elder Rowan slowly lifted the ancient crown. His weathered hands trembled. For 300 years, he said, this crown waited. It did not wait for the strongest. It waited for the worthiest. He turned toward Mira. You endured humiliation without hatred. You suffered loneliness without surrendering your compassion. You were denied your name, yet never lost your heart. The elder's voice echoed through the silent courtyard. Mira Ashwyn, will you accept your rightful place as Luna of Silvermoon Dominion and the final heir of the First Kingdom? Mira looked across the gathering. She saw palace servants standing beside dukes, children standing beside decorated warriors. The divisions that had once defined the kingdom suddenly seemed very small. Finally, she smiled. I do not accept this crown because my blood is royal. I accept it because no child should ever believe they matter less than someone else. I will rule only if kindness remains stronger than power. Tears filled countless eyes throughout the courtyard. High Elder Rowan gently lowered the moon crown onto her head. The instant the silver circlet touched her hair, a radiant pillar of moonlight erupted into the heavens. The moon crystal above the palace answered with brilliant silver light. Ancient wolf statues surrounding the courtyard glowed softly. For one breathtaking moment, every wolf in the kingdom felt the same overwhelming peace. The First Kingdom had returned. Lucian stepped forward. He carried neither sword nor royal scepter, only a single white moonflower. He offered it to Mira. I searched my entire life for the Luna destiny promised me. He smiled gently. I never imagined she had already been serving the kingdom while the rest of us failed to see her. Soft laughter rippled through the crowd. Then Lucian took her hand. I cannot promise that our future will be free from hardship, but I promise this: every sunrise, I will choose truth over fear. I will choose compassion over pride. And above all, I will choose you. Mira intertwined her fingers with his. And every sunrise, I will remind this kingdom that greatness is never measured by birth, It is measured by the lives we lift. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause. That evening, Lucian and Mira stood together upon the highest palace balcony overlooking Silvermoon Dominion. Thousands of lanterns illuminated the streets below like rivers of stars. The kingdom no longer celebrated the return of an ancient bloodline. It celebrated the triumph of humility over arrogance, of mercy over revenge, of hope over fear. Some legends begin with a crown. The greatest ones begin with kindness. Before this story ends, tell us what you believe. If you had been Mira, could you truly forgive the kingdom that treated you as invisible for so many years? Or would some betrayals remain impossible to forget? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We would love to hear your perspective. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more unforgettable werewolf romance adventures filled with alpha kings, hidden heirs, ancient prophecies, courageous lunas, and epic journeys of love and redemption. Until next time, may you always recognize the value of those the world forgets.